This video is called Mastering Bank Feeds because I think that mastering your bank feeds, bank downloads in QuickBooks Online is probably one of the best things you can learn in order to significantly speed up your data entry from transactions that come from the bank. Hi, I'm Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA and an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor. And I'm going to show you what the new banking screen looks like in QuickBooks Online, which is really exciting, and then how to use the different features and how to master the bank feeds and the bank rules, which is really what drives this entire engine. So I'm going to click on banking, and I've already connected the banks to QuickBooks, and I have other videos which I'll put in the description below that can explain the whole connectivity process. But this is right after you connect and the transactions are downloaded and you're ready to start categorizing. So the very first thing you see is a drop-down menu on the top left of the screen that allows you to choose which bank account you're going to work with. You can work with my Chase checking account or with a Bank of America Visa credit card. So I got two accounts that I'm essentially working with. I'm going to click on the bank account, start with that one. So the very first thing you'll see is you'll see these big bubbles here, these big message boxes, kind of letting you know where QuickBooks stands before asking you to do any interactivity, any interjection with it. QuickBooks is actually applying artificial intelligence, metadata from millions of QuickBooks users to figure out more or less maybe what you should be doing with that information. So you will notice right away that QuickBooks will actually categorize every one of the transactions. In some cases, it will give it a random category, like for example, check 250. QuickBooks doesn't even know who I wrote that check to. Taxes and licenses, well, that may be right or maybe monumentally wrong. So in some cases, if it can read more or less the payee well, and it has good data from other users, it will suggest something worth it. Otherwise, it may suggest something totally random. So you gotta be very careful about that. The other piece is description. By default is a cleaned up description. So QuickBooks actually cleaned up the payee name that came from your bank. In some cases, it will clean it up really well. In some cases, not so much. So this actually, if you look at my screen, it looks pretty clean. But if I scroll up and I click on this little tiny hidden gearbox that's here on the right side, if I click on that and then I click on show bank details, what this will do is instead of showing me QuickBooks' cleaned up version of the payee, I get the raw bank data. And in some cases, you want the raw bank data because QuickBooks' determination of what it was way off. And in some cases, it's just better, easier, cleaner to see it cleaned up. Like for example, this one says Whole Foods. And if you notice, it's not even spelled Whole Foods correctly. And if I go ahead and disable that bank details memo and I go to then QuickBooks' version of Whole Foods, let me just make sure that that setting took. So let's take the bank details and let's scroll down and let's see where Whole Foods is. It's somewhere, there it is. So see the cleaned up version, QuickBooks will clean it up for you. Again, not always perfect. It's worth giving it a try though. I absolutely think it's worth giving it a try. So if you actually click on these bubbles here, for example, so if I click on this one that says to suggested income, and I click on that, it will show me all the ones that is suggesting me to categorize as income. Now I can just click on add all over here, and I'll basically accept everything as is, okay? Maybe I want that, maybe I don't. I can check them individually if I want to, and I can actually shift click, which is awesome. So I can click on this one, scroll down, hold the shift button, and then click on another one and I'll select everything in a group. I can click on this little box up here, top left, which is a select all button. I can select them all and deselect them all. I can click on the gear menu again, and I can also limit the number of rows that I'm seeing, which is really valuable when you're doing a select all, select none type of situation. So by clicking on these little bubbles, you will get, again, QuickBooks' guess on what I should categorize these things. And in some cases, this will be right. In some cases, this will be wrong. In some cases, you may need an accounting professional to kind of walk you through it. But anyway, so I'm going to go all the way to the left here and click on all transactions. And I'm going to start categorizing some of these. So I'm going to go this one that says La Granja, which is a restaurant. And and I want to create the vendor. So actually you don't have to create the vendor. Some people just click on add and that's it. But I like creating the vendor. So I'll just copy it from bank detail and paste it here. Wouldn't it be nice if there was just like a shortcut for just quickly just inserting that data there? That would be nice, wouldn't it? But I just selected through here what I wanted, copy and paste it, created it as a vendor, and then I selected my category, and then I click on add on the right side. And then what that will do is I will add that category in there. And if it shows up again, if the same vendor shows up again, it's going to automatically suggest the same payee that I just created and the same category that I just created as well. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna switch over to the credit card for a second, just so we can get a little bit different taste of this. And we're gonna see that in some cases, some vendors are pretty repetitive. For example, look at this, La Granja. This is on the credit card. Apparently I like going to this restaurant a lot. So it renames it to my payee, because this column here, it's payee. And it would be nice if those columns were sticky in the top, wouldn't it? That they wouldn't hide when I scroll down, but hey, this is what we got. And then we got meals and entertainment, which is the right category, and then we click on add. So it's more or less how it works. Now let me show you a couple of variations of that. So for example, let me pick one that says Amazon here. I'm gonna again copy and paste into the payee, so I can add as a vendor and make these office supplies. Let's type here, or office supplies, perfect. So I'm making that office supplies and then clicking on add. And then what you're gonna notice is when Amazon shows up again, in theory, it should start remembering the categories. Let me sort these by description here. Let's see what happens. There's Amazon. Okay, so see, it really should have remembered it. So here on the top right, there's a little gearbox. There's a checkbox that says remember category transactions. If you check on that, what it will do is it will then go back to what you chose in the past and then suggest them not based on Intuit's QuickBooks' version of the suggestion. It would be based on your past history. So based on the past history was office supplies and software, and that's why it makes it green. The green just means that we took this from history. We're not taking this from educated guesses. Okay. So at that point, you could come up from up here from the top. You can click on office supplies and expenses, and I can just basically click on the top Amazon and then hold down the shift key and click on the last Amazon, and I can just click on add selected and accept those. Now, there's so many variations of this. QuickBooks Online is so awesome for bank feeds. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So many things. That's why I have so much fun doing this. So other things you can do is, for example, let me click back to all transactions here, so we see everything. And then, for example, we got all these Barnes and Nobles here. So one of the things I can do is I can click on the first Barnes and Nobles, hold the shift key, click on the last Barnes and Nobles. I will select all of them in the group. Okay. Then up here, there's a little hidden button that says batch actions. I can click on that. I can click on modify selected. And I can change the payee, which in this case is not in my vendor list. So I'm going to create Barnes Noble. I can call it whatever I want. Create that as a vendor. And then let's say this is office supplies again. And then click apply. And then it'll select them all in one shot because I had them selected as a group. And then I can just go, in this case, not batch action. Oh yeah, right here. Batch actions accept. Or I can scroll down and click all the way down. Actually, no, that was it. Batch actions accept. So the batch actions accept, that takes care of that. Okay. So once I'm in this all transactions mode, I don't get the add in the bottom, that big green add. But if I click on any of these categories, then I get the green add, because that green add means it's adding them based on the ones that QuickBooks guessed what it is. So in some cases, again, you'll get it right. In some cases, you'll get it wrong. A couple other cool things you can do is you can write in a rule. So if I go to Google Storage, and then I'm going to go ahead and type here Google Storage, and let's say I wanted to put that into a different category. I'm going to call it Cloud Services. Not that you should have a category like that, but I'm just saying, for example, let's say that's how I have it. So if I just save it, it'll remember it from next time, but it won't create a rule. If I want to create a rule against an actual written rule, I would click on this thing that here that says edit settings, and then I would click on create custom rule. Okay, so actually I got two choices. If I click on leave Google storage uncategorized and I click on save, my next Google storage will go to uncategorized. So that would be one of the sort of lessons that you get from there. Let me switch the account category and put it back into cloud services and click on add. But on the second time around, let me change that again to cloud services. And let me pay attention to this edit settings. So I'm not going to click on leave. I'm going to click on create custom rule. And then it will send me to the rule section where it will write the rule out. That means that I can change it later. I can delete it. I can change priorities. So in this case, we'll call this Google storage. And the reason why you may want to write the rule so you can edit it afterwards is so you can maybe modify it. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by modifying a rule. So let me go back to bank rules up here on the top. And I close that. And here's my Google rule. And I'm going to click on edit. So what I could do is I can say, look, only apply this category, cloud services, whatever, only apply it to my bank account, or only apply it to my credit card account, or apply it on all. That's what's really cool about the rules. I'm going to go back to banking and show you a different rule that's actually really awesome. Most of these rules, what it does is it will select the category, but you still have to press a button to approve it. So for example, let's say all these Intuit ones, I'm going to create a rule for it. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to call this Intuit. And then we'll call this one, let's call it client software, right? Just to create a different category. Now, this doesn't mean those are the right categories. I'm just doing it for fun there, okay? So that will change all of them for you, which means you still have to select them all and click on add. But I'm going to click on edit settings, and I'm going to create the custom rule, and I'm going to call this Intuit. But then I'm going to take it one step further. So what I'm going to do is I'm not just writing the rule, I'm also hitting this little checkbox that says automatically add to my books. And what that will do is it won't even ask you what to do with it. It will just send it straight into the register with that category, which is actually an even awesomer option. I mean, this could get tricky if your rules are kind of vague, if your rules are not straightforward, or using vendors with very generic names. This could be an issue because things, you can get the wrong categories. But automating some of these things is actually really awesome. Now, if you're worried about what went into your books from your bank feeds, you can click here where it says in QuickBooks, and you get a list of everything that was inputted in there, and then under what circumstances. So if you see this little, like the two little papers with a plus sign and the word rule, that means that they were automatically added using a rule, okay? If I go down and the ones that say nothing, those are the ones that actually I keyed in the bank feeds. I told it, okay, I told it what the category was and that stuff. So that was not applied by a rule. So those blank ones were not applied by rules, and all the ones that say rule on it were applied by rules, and the ones that have the little plus sign were automatically added due to the rules. So let's let me show you how to create a rule before I even look at the transaction. So let's say, for example, these are GoDaddy's here. So I'm going to create a rule. I'm going to go to bank rules up here, and then I'm going to click on new rule, and we're going to call this GoDaddy. Okay. What I call it here is not as important as what I call it here. Here it needs to be right on. So I'm going to type it in kind of the same way as there, GoDaddy.com. And then under payee, we'll call this one GoDaddy. And then under category, we'll put it under cloud services. Again, whatever category it's supposed to be. Now, I'm not going to do automatically add. I'm just going to create the rule and then click on save. Okay. And there's my rule there. So I'm going to go back to banking. And as I go down to GoDaddy, there we go. These are automatically categorized for me, and these say rule on it. They don't have the little plus sign. Now, if I select these two and do a batch actions accept, and then go into in QuickBooks, let's go into in QuickBooks. I'm going to see these were created by the rule. Let me see what, okay, right here. That's created by a rule, but it wasn't automatically registered. You still have to press the accept button. So you get so much flexibility with bank rules and bank feeds. You get so many great things that you can do. Now, let me cover a couple more. So if I'm in the for your review section, and let's say, for example, there's 2 transactions that I don't want to bring in for whatever reason, potentially duplicates, whatever, I can select them, and then I can click on the batch action and click on exclude. And then what exclude would do is it will remove them from the screen, so it will never prompt me what to do with it, to put it in my bank or whatever. And then when I click on exclude it in the top, I could always recall them back if I want to. So I can click on undo if I didn't want to exclude them. And I can also delete them from this permanent screen by selecting them all, going to batch actions and delete. So another really powerful piece of this whole thing. Okay, let's go back for your review. And let's see, and let me change this back to show bank details for a second. And I'm going to look for another vendor that would be common. Look for another sort of repeating vendor, but with small modifications. Let me see what else we got here. Okay, so this vendor called Publix, let's say it's a supermarket, and we want to create a rule based on the dollar amount. So for example, I have a client that says, look, if it's over $100, make it a personal expense. If it's under 100, make it a business expense, right? So the way that will work is you would have to create 2 rules. The one based on the $100 and one and the second one. So we're gonna go to bank rules, and we'll create a rule from scratch. We'll go to new rule. We'll type here Publix $100 plus. This is just the name. Doesn't really matter what you put there. And the bank text, all I'm looking for is maybe just the word Publix. And then I'm going to do a second condition at line, and then we'll do the amount. So let's say the amount is greater than, in this case, 99.99. So we said that these were going to be personal. So we'll create a vendor called Publix. And then we have a shareholder distribution. Let's see what we got here in terms of equity. Right here. Owners pay personal expense. That's good enough. So we're going to make all the Publixes under $100 this category, and then all the ones, actually this is over $100, we'll make it personal, and then under we'll make them business. So we'll click on save, and then we'll go back to banking. Then we should be able to scroll down to our vendor Publix. Okay, and notice that only 2 got the rule applied to them because they were over $100. But then this one doesn't have any rule applied to it. So I have to go back into my rules, select Publix, click on the edit drop-down menu, click on copy, and we'll call this one Publix under. And again, the name you give it doesn't really matter. But then I'll change the condition here. So less than $100, perfect. And then we'll make this one office supplies. Come on, there you go. And then we'll click on save. So the same exact vendor, you will notice, let me scroll down again to where the P's are. Same exact vendors will have 2 different categories in this case based on dollar amount. So I can select these 3 if I want to, and then click on batch actions, accept. So it is really powerful stuff. I mean, some people ask, what's the point of doing all this? Well, the point is, then when you then pull up your profit and loss report, let me pull it up real quick. All those expenditures that I recorded, let me do all dates here. All those expenditures that I recorded from the bank and income or whatever starts tallying up instead of me having to sit there and type all this stuff manually. So, getting the stuff from the bank, categorizing it correctly from the get-go, building rules so it automatically categorizes things for you. All that thing in combination, to me, is the most powerful feature that QuickBooks Online has. So I really hope this video was helpful. And I'll put some links below to other videos where I kind of deep dive in other areas of bank feeds. Thank you.